Craig Bloxom, welcome to the podcast.
Michael Cainey, thank you for having me. Incredible Lives with Cainey, and now you've got Bloxy on.
Mate, the last time I saw you was a bit over 6 months ago at the Incredible Lives live show. How good was that?
That was really good. We did that at Lazotte's, and we had Tezza McKenzie and the legendary bass player from AC/DC, Mark Evans, who's a funny guy, wonderful man.
There we are.
Great. Oh, there we are. Look.
Wow. Look at you were right into it, weren't you?
We were having a laugh, but see, that's because of your good journalism. You asked the right questions.
No, you stole the show. You were
rubbish.
like...
Rubbish. Mark Evans is one of the funniest guys in rock and roll. He really is. Nick Barker is another one. Yeah. Next time Nick comes up, I'll line him up to come and do your
absolutely.
podcast. He's funny as well, and he's got some stories because it's always good to hear from these people who go way back in the Australian rock and roll pubs and barns of the 80s and the 90s and beyond.
I think they got the best stories. I mean, that was the thing. I mean, I did one before about a month earlier, which was still great. But having a total music live show was so good because you were just bouncing off each other, weren't you?
Yes. Yeah, it was really good fun. And the feedback from the audience was that they all enjoyed it too. And then we got the Arse Spies up to play, which was probably one of our last performances because that band is now, we've amicably parted ways just because the general public really didn't want to hear reggae versions of Spy vs. Spy, and I was determined to do it, but after a while I thought, look, it's not really working, and I love those boys, but the audience spoke, and they wanted to hear the old V Spy, so that's what I'm doing now.
Was that a really hard decision to tell the boys?
It was. It was really hard to tell them. It's still a bit raw now. We ended on good terms, but when you put your heart and soul into a band, and I'm just one of many people who have gone through this. So many people form bands, and they write a bunch of songs, and they go out and they present the songs, and they put their heart and soul into it. But they turn around after a couple of gigs and just go, no one's really interested. They haven't got it. They haven't got the sound or the songs that people connect with. And after a while, you've just got to give it up.
But from the outside looking in, like I was looking at it going, well, you guys are, playing on some gigs, like the Taronga Zoo with, people like Wendy Matthews Dragon, Swanee and all that sort of thing. From the outside, looks like it's going okay.
Well, it is, because I've gone back to playing the Spy vs. Spy catalogue as it was originally recorded. And to be honest, when I buy a band's albums, they are the albums that I play, and they are the songs that I love. Because I'd spent 20 years working as a chef, I wanted to come back, and I really wanted to do something different. That was my personal goal, present something new, which I did, and it just didn't fly. People want to hear the old songs that they grew up with, the way that they were played, and that's what I'm doing now. I've got a great new band with me. I've got Paul Green singing and playing rhythm guitar, and he was in Michael Wiley's, the old guitarist from Spy vs. Spy, before he died.
Right.
Paul Green sang and played guitar in Mike's band for 10 years. So he's going to help me sing, because a lot of the songs I can't sing so high anymore. So Paul and I are both going to do vocals, and we've got the incredibly talented and totally unique Bob Spencer from Skyhooks and the Angels.
Wow.
on guitar, and he's been playing in Rose Tattoo as well, and now he's joining us, and we've got the multi-talented and incredible drummer, local boy. We've got Justin Naricki on the drums now. So we're going to be a formidable
force to be reckoned with.
Oh, it's going to be great. And we had our first rehearsal the other day, and it just...
I think we might have a little bit of a video you sent. I think you were mucking around in the studio. Was it down at Nowra, was it?
Yeah, that was Paul and I. We running through the songs. There we are.
I need to put the cans on to listen to
we're having fun. And look at Paul. He's wearing a Hard-Ons T-shirt. They just released a great film. And I never knew that the Hard-Ons came from Western Sydney. And because Ray, the Korean bass player, he copped so much shit being in a punk band and being an Asian. Like, they used to have Nazis come along to the gigs and Zig Heil them and stuff. It's a really good film. It's called the Most Australian Band Ever, and it was done by Nalini Sakara and her brother Jonathan, and it's a really great film. And I didn't know that the Hard-Ons were really big in Europe. Like, they go places over there and they sell out big rooms. So
it's just like what Mark Evans mentioned about when he was in Rose Tattoo. He didn't realise how big of a following it had in Germany.
Yes. The Germans love... I have a friend, a Brazilian roadie who comes from Germany, and when I told him that we had played gigs supporting Rose Tattoo and I knew Angry Anderson, he literally fell at my feet and went, what? Like, because he thinks they're gods. They're his favourite band. His favourite band of all time, this German guy living in Brazil, is Rose Tattoo. I had to tell him every dirty, filthy story about Rose Tattoo that I knew. All the drugs, all the girls, all the details, the shocking dirt about Rose Tattoo.
What's the worst thing you can think of about what happened with Rose Tattoo? Give us one story.
Well, okay, I'll tell you. We were doing a gig with the Tats at the Astra Hotel in Bondi, and it was Spies and the Tats, and we went on and we played our 45-minute show, and we walked off stage and we were getting our gear off stage, and Little Angry walks over and says, "Hey, Bloxy, Geordie and Dallas," who are the drummer and the bass player, "Geordie and Dallas haven't turned up. Could you guys go on and play a bit more until they arrive?" And I went, "Angry, no problem." And so we started to put our gear back on stage, and then the front door to the pub opens, and in comes Geordie and Dallas, right? They're out of breath, and they're running, and they come running over. They go, "Ang, ang, ang," because Angry's pissed off, right? They go, "Ang, ang, ang. Sorry, mate, we're so sorry that we're late, but the car broke down, so we had to bloody well flog another one to get to the gig." Right? Now that sums up Rose Tattoo. They are hardcore Aussie band. If the car broke down, they flogged another one to get to the gig. There's nothing fake about Rose Tattoo.
Wow.
They're the real deal. They always have been. They're hardcore Australian rockers.
Mate. Well, that's just staying on, say, Bob Spencer. ARIA Hall of Fame. Like I said, he's played with, I said, Rose Tattoo, Choir Boys as well. John English, Chisel, Cheap Trick, Kevin Borridge. It blows my mind.
Bob's played with everyone. The thing about Bob is he's got a totally unique style.
I've got a pic of him too, actually.
There he is with hair. That's back with Skyhawks.
Look at that chest.
Yeah. Oh, look. Look, he's wonderful. But the thing is, no one says a bad word about him either. He's got a really kind personality. He cares about people, but his musicality is totally unique. He's a bit like Michael Wiley was from Spy
Yeah.
versus Spy.
Yeah.
He's got his own sound. He doesn't write. If I can describe this a bit better, you've got guitarists like Ian Moss from Cold Chisel. You've got Mark Lizotte from Diesel.
Yeah.
You've got Stevie Ray Vaughan. They're all classic, kind of blues-based
Yeah.
guitarists, and they're incredibly fluid, and they just make their guitars sing. Now, so does Bob, but Bob's foundation is in British rock. He loves bands like Free,
Yep.
who had a guitarist called Paul Kossoff, and Paul Kossoff played a kind of minimalist style, and Bob follows that kind of genre. It's less is more, and I've always loved his style. Bob can say more in 3 notes than a flashy guitarist can. Noodly, 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 noodly.
Yeah, yeah.
Bob will get on there and just go do 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 da da da, and kind of hold it.
Yeah.
He's a really he's a master of underplaying the non-guitar solo, guitar solo. That's Bob.
Just think with Bob. So I just rattled off, all these different people that he's played for and bands that he's played with. Believe it or not, Norman Gunston's on the list. I don't know what the hell he did with Norman Gunston. You need to ask him that.
I
and
will.
Also Finch.
Finch, well, he formed Finch. I can remember.
Was Mark Evans in that too at one stage? Finch.
I think he might
After
have
he
been
left
for a while.
after he left AC/DC, maybe. That's
Yes.
ringing in my head.
Yes, he was. I've seen a video clip with Mark on bass.
Yeah.
In about 1980 ish, 2 Triple J released a Live at the Wireless album. And the last song on that album was a song by Finch called Shortchanged Again. And I can remember playing that record back in the days when you'd put the record on the turntable and go...
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was called Shortchanged Again, and it was my favourite song on the whole record. And I look back now, and I'm playing with Bob, and I just go, wow. We just go back. So that was 1980. It's now 2026. That's 46 years. And of course, Spy vs. Spy worked with the Angels in 1987. We did their Howling tour, and that's when I got to know Bob. Bob's a very precise player. He likes his sound to be just so, and I loved being on tour with him and just learning his technique and watching him play, because he's a totally unique Australian guitarist. There's nobody like him. He's very much like Michael Wiley. There's no one like Michael either.
Well, that's the thing with Bob, is that because he's played for all these different people and bands. Do you feel that not being a front man can sometimes be better in regards to getting more work? Because again, he's got this resume, this ridiculous resume, where a front person couldn't really do that. Is that like a, you know what I mean?
You know, that's a good point. One thing I've heard Bob say is that he really likes to fit in, and ideally he really loves to play rhythm guitar. He loves to just slot in with a band and play along. But I love his lead playing, because he's into a lot of Middle Eastern melodies, which you'll hear when you come to a show. He's into all kind of minor keys, and his non-lead solos are totally unique.
Paul Green, he's had an extraordinary life as well, an ARIA-nominated muso that's also competed at the Olympics. I think we've got a pic of him.
Yeah, he started out, he did did track and field. His dad was an athlete. Their grandfather was an athlete.
Yeah.
So it runs in the family. His father has done 8 decathlons.
Yeah.
Okay, now a decathlon goes over 2 days, and you've got to do 10 different. What do they call them? 10 different. Thing you've got to run, swim, disciplines. You've got to do 10 different disciplines, and they are one of the hardest things that an athlete can do. But Paul was really good at the 400 meters, and he went to the Olympics and
Atlanta.
Wound up being in the finals, in the 5th batch of finals.
I think he was in the 4x400 relay as well. So and he's also at Commonwealth Games as well.
He's done.
It's an incredible story. I mean, but his offerings of Behind the Stars with his band, Paul Green and the Other Colours, was self-recorded, produced, and as we mentioned, an ARIA finalist for Best Blues and Roots album.
Look,
he knows his stuff,
and he is constantly writing songs. He's got a little studio where he very generously records local musicians. I've heard things that he's done recently where a young lady came in with a couple of songs, and he kind of guides her through the song, and she will lay down the guitar and she will sing, and then he will go in and play the drums, play the bass better than me, play the guitar, and in like 4 or 5 days, he's got 2 fully produced, world-class sounding songs. So he really is a studio guy now. He's a producer.
Yeah.
He writes songs. He's just an all-round talent. One of the first bands that he ever saw was Spy vs. Spy. He was a big fan. He and a friend got in a car when they were underage and drove from the south coast of New South Wales up to Canberra University to sneak in to see Spy vs. Spy play in about 1986. And the first album he bought was Meet Us Inside by Spy vs. Spy.
Have you signed it yet for him?
I have. It's wonderful. But to get him on board, because he was in Michael Wiley's Spy vs. Spy for 10 years, so he knows all the songs.
You sent me a set list, was like 22 songs in all, and as you mentioned, Paul will help with the vocals. But are you trying to nail the original sound, or are these other the other 3 guys going, can we put a bit of a spin on it, or is it your baby?
Look, it's not my baby. We're going to play all of the Spy vs. Spy vs. Spy songs, half of them which have not been played for 35 years. Yeah. We're going to do really early stuff. We're going to form the framework, and we're going to play the songs, but everyone is going to bring their own individual talents to that stage, because we've all been around a long time. I don't want to tell all these guys what to play. I don't want to be a tyrant and say, you have to play this and you have to play that. There's just no joy in that. One of the briefs when I contacted all of these guys was, look, we're all going to learn these Spy vs. Spy songs, but I want you to bring yourself to the gig. Like, I want you, Bob, to be Bob. I want Paul, you to be Paul, and Nariki to be Nariki. So we haven't actually played a gig yet.
Yep.
We're just starting to rehearse, and I know from when we got together that there's a chemistry there. Yeah. And if there's chemistry, there is going to be life. And if there's life, there's going to be rock.
Yeah. And he's also playing a song on this tour that you're going to be going on, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Don't Waste My Time, which was an Angel song, but a bit of a spin on it.
Bob Spencer wrote Don't Waste My Time with Rick Brewster, and it was a hit for them. Bob worked really hard on that album, and it was the only album that the Angels had that went to number one.
Yeah.
Went straight in at number one. But this song that Bob has, Don't Waste My Time, I just love it. And
There's a lot of bass in it as well. It's right down your alley.
yeah, plenty of bass. And I've taken the song, and because the arrangement that the Angels had a really short lead solo, I thought, I really want Bob to do a solo that's 3 times as long. So we've extended the middle part, and we've stuck a new ending on, which I came up with, and I said, Bob, is this all right with you? But I want you to do a longer solo, and I want you to play at the end as well, and I've changed your song. Is this okay with you? And Bob got right back and said, hey, I really like it. Let's do it. So it's all good. So there's a bit of creativity going on. That will apply to Spy songs as well, but we just really want to get up there and rock the Spy songs the way that we did back in 1986. You know, get up there and hammer away.
Beautiful. And this tour, it goes around Australia. You haven't haven't released when it starts or the tour dates yet, and I think till next month. But so you're going right around Australia? Is it everywhere but Darwin? Is it?
Yeah, well, everywhere Darwin and Hobart.
Yeah.
It's hard to get gigs these days unless you're a super group. But we're doing one show in Sydney.
Yep.
We're doing a show in Brisbane. We're doing a show in Adelaide, a show in Perth, and a show in Melbourne. We're actually playing at the Espy in Melbourne, which is going to be great. You ever been there? It's a great old pub. It's right down on the water in St Kilda. Spies have played there heaps of times. Everybody's played there. It's just got a great Australian rock and roll history. The carpet sticks to your feet. That's where...
From the lemon chicken.
That's where Rockwiz was. That was live from the Espy Hotel. So we're really excited.
Did you enjoy
about
pubs better than bigger arenas? Is that like that intimate sort of thing? Or?
You know, there's this wonderful... we don't care where we play.
Yeah.
Something happens when you walk on stage. It's something that the audience feels, and when you're in a band, you feel it too.
Yeah.
When you walk onto a stage and you plug in and you hit those first notes, something spiritual occurs. There's a unity between you and the audience. There's a common ground, and you come together in this joyful strain of loud music, and it becomes this connection. Like, you connect with the audience and they connect with you, and we feed off of the audience, and I think they feed off of us. And if you're playing well and you're having fun, the audience will have fun. And I'm always about that kind of thing, whether it's in a pub or at an open air festival. It's all about getting out there, rocking hard, and having fun.
Is this, and I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but I mean, once this tour is done, are you guys in it for the long haul? And is this group going to stay together after this tour? Is there plans to keep it going? You know?
Look, it's one of those things where you smell it and see. We'll see if it goes well. If nobody comes to see us play, well, that'd probably tell us that it's not the thing. But if it goes well.
But really, I mean, as you mentioned before, you know, there's a real thirst for old bands. I mean, look at Australian Crawl, you know, getting back together, James Rain and no Paul Williams, no bass, you know, like he could have came in as a cameo.
Yeah. Look, well, Paul Williams, are you thinking Wawanee?
No, he wasn't. He was with Australian Crawl. I think he's become a bit reclusive.
Paul Williams, bass player from Australian Crawl.
Yeah.
He's a legend.
Yeah.
I know Paul. Haven't seen him in years.
Yeah.
He's a great bass player.
Yeah.
Australian Crawl. They were a great band. Did you ever see them live?
I never. I wish I did.
They were just great.
Here's our chance, maybe. You know.
Yeah, look, I would love it. There is a thing coming back where I think there's a lot of people who were raised on that kind of pub rock.
Yeah.
You know, the Angels, the Oils, Australian Crawl, Noiseworks. We could go on and on. There's you know, so many great bands. And then you look at the bands from the 90s, the Living End, the Clouds, you know, there's all Nick Barker and the Reptiles, great bands. These are all great bands.
But that's another thing too, like you mentioned, you love, you know, pubs, but there are a lot of places, a lot of pubs, even in Newcastle, they don't play, they don't have any little corners with a microphone or a stage these days. It's been turned into gaming facilities and all that sort of thing. But there's a real thirst for it. It's almost like if you hear someone playing in a pub, it's like, get in here. I don't care if it's shit or not. I just want to hear some live music.
Yeah,
and that's the sad thing. You go to Sydney, probably the Bridge Hotel is still banging them out some great gigs there forever and a day. That place
what
is
a great
legendary.
gig. I've got a good story about the Bridge Hotel. We're going to be doing a show in Brisbane with the Sunny Boys and the Clouds. That's our Brisbane show. But one night I've known Jeremy from the Sunny Boys for years. We used to play with them down at the Fern Tree Gully Hotel down in Victoria. It was a bloodbath. Like, that's back in the days when pubs were, everyone would get in underage and they'd be drunk and fighting and carrying on. But we were at the Bridge Hotel one day. I forget what band we were, but Jeremy and I were drinking beer, and I think Jeremy might have been a bit financially embarrassed at the time, so I was buying the beers, and fine with that, because Jeremy's a legend. He's he's an Australian classic. He's written, you know, Alone With You Tonight. He's a classic. And so I was buying the beers, and we were watching the band, having a great time, and he'd say, but he can drink. Well, this is back in the day. Things have changed now. We've all changed, right? I'm talking 30 years ago. So we were on it at the Bridge. And finally, Jeremy said to me, hey, it's your shout, give me $20. And I said, Jeremy, it's been my shout all night long. I'll go to the bar. He went, no, I'll go to the bar. Give me $20. I went, okay. And see, Jeremy's a big guy. He's a big hunk of a man. If he starts looking at you and going, give me $20, I'm going to buy. I went, sure, Jeremy, fine. I gave him $20. And that's the last I ever saw of him. Right? Gone. So I think Jeremy probably needed taxi fare home. So he took the $20, and I haven't seen him since that, which would be probably 30 years. So I'm looking forward to playing a gig with him up in Brisbane at the Roma Street Parkland with the Clouds, because as soon as I see him, I'm going to say, Jeremy, where's that fucking $20 you owe me?
Well, mate, that's a few years ago, so it's probably appreciated by then. So I mean, imagine saying, get some drinks for $20 these days. Be like, no, give us $40 to get some drinks.
Well, see, it's my first schooner at the Shoal Bay Country Club cost me, I think it was 47 cents. I could go to the pub underage at 15.
You listen to this, Brody? At 47 cents.
At 15 years of age, because we could go into the beer garden and we would get the oldest looking one of us, which for some ridiculous reason was me, and I'd go up and buy the beers. But you could go to the pub on a Friday night with $2 and you could get 4 schooners of old, because being Newcastle, all the men drink old. 2 is a schooner of black. Right, I could get 4 schooners of black and a packet of crisps for $2 on a Friday night. And that was a big night out.
Brady's just going, he's blowing his mind here.
Well, what's a schooner worth now? I don't even know.
Mate, probably nearly $10 now in pubs.
Wow.
Yeah. Happy hours do it for about $6. I know the sunny. I went past the Sunnyside today. It was $6 between 2:30 and 5. We played for the Sunnyside. Early June, you played at the Broadmeadow Race Course to raise money for Greg Bryce, who was
that was a great gig,
stabbed at
wasn't
that
it?
gig in Merriweather. I can't believe it a while
That
back.
was a wonderful thing.
And you guys ripped it on stage, didn't you?
Oh, thank
with
you.
Grant Walmsley, Brian McVernon.
Brian McVernon's a great old guy. We had Brad Elliott on drums, and Jake. Sorry, Jake. I can't remember your last name, but Jake's a legend on bass. Cain, not Jake. Cain, there he is. Cain, he's just a beast. He can sing and play at the same time. And yeah, we just got up there and rocked out with like four Spy songs. Had a great time. That was really good. But it was all for such a good cause, because we had one. We had one of our own. Greg Bryce got stabbed walking out of a pub one night, and this guy really wanted to kill him. I was talking to Greg, and this guy like stabbed him viciously. He was lucky to get away from him, and it was wonderful that Grant Walmsley put together with Generate Entertainment too. They were great. So many sponsors, so many people gave of their time to put this show together, and so many bands played, and it went off seamlessly. There was no egos there. People came and supported Newcastle. You know, it really reminded me of the Newcastle earthquake gig, where everyone came together to support each other and help each other out. It just felt really good. The vibe in the room was great, and the bands played really, really well. It was a wonderful day.
Here's a question. I mean, just staying with the Greg Bryce stabbing. Was there ever a time at gigs over the years you were worried after a gig, or before a gig, or even during a gig?
Oh, absolutely. We had stalkers. Michael Wiley had this woman who was, her mental health was untreated, and she would come to gigs and wait at the back door, and when Michael would walk out stage, she'd go, "There you are, Michael, you need to come home to me and the children right now." And Michael had never met this woman. We used to wake up. I remember one morning waking up at a house in Forest Lodge, and I walked out the front door, and I fell over this woman sleeping on our doorstep. "Who are you? What are you doing here?" She said, "I'm here for Michael. When's he going to come home to us and the children?" And it was like, going, "Get away. We had to take out an AVO against her. It's not. We used to get death threat phone calls. I think it's anyone who is in the public eye. You find people who will, these days, it's a kind, I think they call it cancelling too. You'll have people who will just take it upon themselves that you've done the wrong thing by them, so they're going to cancel you. And I think you've done one, and you've really exposed the hypocrisy and how certain people tried to bring undone Craig McLaughlin, and you did a wonderful podcast. Craig.
No, thank you. And look, he's still struggling to this day in regards to it. He's still doing gigs, with Six String, and he's actually got a new cabaret gig coming up, which he hasn't released yet. I think it's a one-man. He hasn't spoken too much about it, but it's like a one-man cabaret. Because the sad thing about it is that after the experience he's had on stage with these people that have accused him of vexatious claims, he doesn't feel safe to go into any type of play, theatre with any other person, because that could happen again. It's almost like he's going, "I'm just going to do it me bloody self, and I can't get in trouble here."
Look, and he's a really great guy. He's a talented actor, musician. He can sing and play and things, but people sling mud at you, right? And even though you are cleared and found not guilty of these things.
Yeah.
Mud, if people throw enough mud, it sticks,
Yeah.
unfortunately, and it's just a crime. But it seems to be the thing these days. A lot of people just get cancelled, especially with social media being what it is. It's
Well, I think the big thing too is that, I mean, these women have, made these claims. They were thrown out in the first 5 minutes in court, and nothing happens to these women. They don't get charged for vexatious claims or any. They just wander off. They can still get on social media and still, which they still do, and give it to Craig McLaughlin even after this court case. He's got out of it. He's moving on now, and I think this has really cleansed him. And a lot more people know about it now and realise that we broke it down, the whole court case. We left no stone unturned.
Yeah.
We sliced and diced it like a surgeon.
Yeah.
And in no uncertain terms, you've got to listen to that podcast, which is called Not Guilty, which is in the top 5 podcasts in Australia up until a few weeks ago. I think it's still in the top 20. And I think there's going to be a few more. And the funny thing about it is that since she was putting that together and I was helping with that as well, there's so many other cases coming forward, other people in that same position going, I've gone through that.
yeah.
So there's scope to maybe do
There's
another
one very
series.
close to me at the
Yeah,
moment, and
yeah.
I won't go into it now, but people can use social media and their influences to try and hurt you
Yep.
or hurt your brand
Yep.
or hurt, and there are no consequences.
Yeah, and the thing
for
is
these
too,
people.
even friends that you think are friends who probably are on your side will not go into bat for these people because it's like, I'll wreck my career if I go into bat. So I'm just going to say nothing. And some of the stories, he told me sort of privately of people, well-known people in the industry that used to be his friend and just dropped off him like flies. It's just been shocking.
That's what I meant, that people, they just throw mud and throw mud and throw mud and throw mud, and eventually some of it sticks, and some people just wind up going, look, I would love to do this thing with you, but I just don't think it's going to be good for me at the moment.
Yeah.
And it's all because of these people slinging mud, and it's a real shame, and it's unfair.
Yeah.
And there are no consequences. So I'm with you, Michael.
Absolutely. Now we're going to go into our first live ad read. Feel free to jump in, Bloxy. I think you'll love this one. It's do you need some spice in the bedroom?
Always. I love a bit of spice.
I've got just the place. It's called Confessions Boutique.
And where is that?
It's at Charleston. Does this just look too staged to you, Brody?
No,
Look, you know when you're an adult, when a trip to Confessions Boutique is more exciting than a trip to Bunnings, although to be fair, both places do have tools.
Look, there are all kinds of tools. There's the tools you get at Bunnings, and then there are tools.
They're just very different tools.
Yeah, very different.
They're used
tools.
differently. No judgment, no awkwardness, just plain laughs, and a lot of massive selection of adult toys that will make the night go off with a bang. Confessions Boutique, Shop 222 Pacific Highway, Charlestown, another proud sponsor of Incredible Lives with Cainey.
And Cainey, that the one thing about going into this boutique is that you walk in and you're immediately made to feel comfortable. It's like fun. There's no stigma involved.
It sounds like you've been there.
Yeah, well,
What did you buy?
I like things that go buzz. I like vibrators.
They don't buzz
things
Lightyear. Buzz Lightyear.
Well, vibrators, they just help you achieve that climax that you're looking for. Right. They just, why not, in this modern world, have all the tools at your disposal that will help you enjoy life to the full?
Bloxy, your bedroom would look like a garage.
Escape the city and discover the magic of the Hunter Valley with HV Tours. From world-class wineries and craft breweries to gourmet food, cheese, chocolate, gin and breathtaking views. This is more than a tour, it's an experience. Small groups, relaxed vibes, local guides and unforgettable memories, all without the stress of driving. Whether it's a romantic getaway, birthday celebration, Hens weekend or just a day out with friends, Hunter Valley Tours delivers the ultimate wine country experience. Book your next escape now at HV Tours and let the good times roll. Everyone deserves the chance to live life their way. At Connectability, they support people with disabilities to build confidence, independence, and real connections in their community. With allied health services and capacity building supports for children and adults, they help people develop the skills they need to grow, learn, and thrive. From daily living and community participation to NDIS support coordination and supported independent living. Connectability is there to help you achieve your goals, dreams and aspirations. Connectability, supporting people, strengthening communities.
The other day, I called you to see if you'd come on, and obviously you said yes to my. I'm so proud that you've decided to come on this.
Anytime you ask, I'm here. Because I believe in you, Michael. You have integrity in every dealing that I've had with you. You have shown your integrity and you are an honourable man.
Thank you. But when I spoke to you the other day, you said you're on your way to an AA meeting.
Yeah,
I was actually shocked.
Ah.
Should I have been?
No. Back in the Spies, Spy versus Spy for all, we always wrote about social things that were important to us, things that we saw, things that we were experiencing. And a lot of the things we were experiencing were drugs and alcohol. We wound up being alcoholics and drug addicts, which I'm not proud of. And towards the end of my time in the Spies, I was a complete and utter alcoholic.
Yeah.
And I tried to get sober by myself, and I would get sober for a while, and after a period of sobriety, I would think that I could drink normally again, and so I'd start having a couple drinks. But when you're an alcoholic, and I am an alcoholic, it's like a disease that you will never be cured from. The only thing you can do is manage it, and you manage it through a program of recovery. And you learn this recovery, well, I did, by going to AA. I didn't want to. I was very reluctant to go there, but I found over time that at an AA meeting, you are surrounded by like-minded people, and you share your problems. People get up and talk, or they don't get up and talk. It just depends on how you're feeling, but it's actually a lot of fun because you hear people get up and talk about one of their worst fears was garbage night, when the garbage truck had come by and collect their recycling bin, because their recycling bin,
crash,
compared to all of the neighbours next door, would just go crash, 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 smashing of bottles and things. So a lot of us would take our bottles and put them into other people's recycling bins, right? And so you learn to laugh about things like that. But getting sober when you've been drinking for years and years and years is really difficult. But AA is the only thing that worked for me, and I hadn't been to an AA meeting in a long time, and it was just great to go to touch base, to remember what I am,
Yeah.
and how I need to look at staying in a frame of mind.
Are you worried about falling back?
Oh, well,
Because again, like you're going into places that obviously has a lot of alcohol, and the
Yeah.
temptation's there. That's like, Jesus Christ, that's a pretty tough gig.
well, that's the thing with being in a band. You get free booze, and that's what really got us in the end.
Yeah.
It's just free vodka, free beers, free things and that. But I'm at that stage now where I haven't had a drink in coming up, I think, to 14 years, or 13, 14. And I never want to go back to the way I was. I would do anything to not go back, because I got so bad that I was drinking first thing in the morning. I was drunk by 9 o'clock in the morning. I was no good for anyone. My family was just so worried about me. My marriage fell apart. I lost jobs. I was a disaster, and I never want to go back.
You mentioned before that you're an alcoholic.
Yes.
But you haven't had a drink in 14 years.
Yep.
So is an alcoholic always an alcoholic?
Always. It's a disease, and in a way it was really comforting to learn that. It's like any kind of disease of addiction. It's something where if any person has one chemical, say the chemical, let's say it's heroin, if you have a little bit of that chemical and you are an addictive personality, having that chemical creates an instant, uncontrollable craving for more that you cannot control. And you, from that point on, you desperately seek more and more and more and more. And it's a disease.
I just today, I ran into a guy, and somehow addiction came up, and this guy he used to be on heroin.
Yeah.
And I said to him, and I'll get to this in a minute of what you said, I think on the live show. He said to me, I said, what was it like when you had heroin for the first time? And he said, it was like an angel kissing you on the dick.
That's exactly what it's like.
And
because
I think
I
you
was a
mentioned
heroin
something like
addict
that,
too.
and you went, how good. When you did it, you tried to, you were offered it all the time, and you were on different drugs, but then you finally succumbed, and then it was like, oh, that was great.
Oh, yeah. Everyone around me was using heroin, and I said, "What are you doing? It's crazy. It's heroin. You don't take heroin." And I mean, everyone around me was using it. Michael was, and I avoided it and said, no, I'm not going to do this, until I went to a party. I'll never forget it. It was on the corner of Johnson Street, Annandale, upstairs in a flat, because you never forget the first time you shoot heroin. And it was a party, there was a lot of people there, and this guy just pulled out a foil package of heroin and put it on the table and said, there you go, everyone dig in. Because back in the late 70s, Sydney there was no border control. It was awash with drugs of every kind. Heroin was everywhere. So one of these guys said, come on, Craig, look, it's free, it's right there. Let me give you your first shot. And everyone was going, come on, don't knock it until you've tried it. Peer pressure, peer pressure. And I just stuck out my arm. And a guy stuck a needle in my arm, and when he pulled it out, it was like, oh my God. Now I know what everyone's talking about. It was the best feeling I've ever had. I was lifted up into the clouds, and I floated around and just went, wow, this is incredible.
And well, obviously you couldn't get enough after that. Would that be fair enough?
Well, it like all Addictions, I think it starts slowly, and you start to do it once a week,
Yeah.
and then it becomes twice a week, and then you think in the middle of the week, gee, it'd be really good in the middle of the week, and I'll just revert back to alcohol now. You think, oh, I'll
Yeah.
have a bottle of wine Wednesday, and then because you drink all weekend,
Yeah.
and then before you know it, you're drinking every day, and then before you know it, you're drunk every day. And then years go by, and if you're an alcoholic, you will eventually start to drink first thing in the morning, and that's kind of rock bottom.
Yeah.
That's when I hit rock bottom.
Well, that was my next question. Where what was it rock bottom from heroin or from drinking?
Well, heroin for me was pretty easy to quit compared to booze, because booze is everywhere.
Yeah.
Australia is a drinking society.
Well, I was going to ask, how do you quit heroin? If it was so good, you mentioned it was so good. How do you go? I mean, I know obviously alcohol is hard to quit, but how do you quit? I thought heroin would be harder.
I think the reason I quit heroin was just I hated myself. The self-loathing and the hypocrisy that I was kind of a public figure in a band, and yet when I went home, I was this total drug addicted person, and I hated myself, and I decided to stop, and I went to a rehab. It's like that Paul Kelly song. There's a rehab up near Byron Bay called The Buttery, and the song goes, he went to the Buttery and stayed about a year. Well, that's what I did, and I got off of that. But not long after I got out of the Buttery, it was booze. It's everywhere. You go to the pub, and before you know it, I was, cut a long story short, getting back to the drinking in the morning. About 9 o'clock one morning, I thought, I think I'm going to throw up, and I went and threw up, and I threw up blood, and I thought, this is not good, Craig.
Yeah.
You have got a serious problem. And the other thing was, my head said to myself, look at yourself. How have you gotten here? You're a reasonably intelligent guy.
Yeah.
You've done reasonably well with your life, and look at you. You're vomiting blood in a toilet at 9 a.m.
Yeah.
Surely there's a better way to live than this. And that's when I thought, I've got to do something. And so I went to an AA meeting, sat up the back, and as people got up to talk, every single one of those people who spoke told my story. They told the story of my addictions and my life.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I thought they must have known that I was coming that day, because they all got up. But then you realise, the more you go, that people with substance abuse problems, we all share a commonality.
Yeah.
And when we get together and talk about it and share that commonality, it gives us support to get through just one more day.
You going to that AA meeting the other week, are you going, I mean, obviously for yourself, it sounds like too that you'd be more help for others than helping yourself in this situation, because again, you have obviously beaten it, but to go there, is it about a self-assurance that I'm still getting, keeping on track, or is it about going, I could help this person? Was that a bit of both? Or?
Look, it's funny because...
Are you allowed to interject?
I go there because I desperately don't want to drink again.
Yeah.
And there are lots of things that are common traits that alcoholics have. We're self-centered, we find fault with other people, we're argumentative, we can act out, little things can blow us out. So you go to AA to remind yourself of what you are. I don't go there to help people, but when I do go, other people get up and talk, and they always help me.
Yeah.
Because I hear them speak and I go, that's exactly what I needed to hear. But if I get up and speak, I will have people at the end of the meeting come up and say, you know, what you said was really what I needed to hear today. And for me, it's vice versa. I hear things from these most ordinary people who get up and speak. They will say something that I need to hear that day. And that's how it works, because all we have being alcoholics is a daily reprieve. We've just got 24 hours a day where if we stay in touch with our spiritual process, we just have 24 hours to stay sober. And so we keep going back to meetings, and they really help, and they're a lot of fun, and you laugh a lot at how crazy we all are, and they're great fun. They are, we think that everyone should go to an AA meeting because they're not all doom and gloom and things like that.
Yeah.
They're a hell of a lot of fun, and people do the silliest things. Like they talk about throwing up in their handbag on the bus because they couldn't make it to the bus stop in time, and they had to throw up, so they just threw up in the handbag.
Yeah.
Which is pretty funny when you think about it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, alcoholism and depression go hand in hand a lot. You do at times still suffer from depression. Is that the hardest thing to beat?
If you've had depression, one of the funny things that, well, it's not funny at all, but people say, who don't understand depression, will say, what are you depressed about? You've got all these things going on in your life. Well, the nature of depression is that's another thing you can't control. You just feel depressed. Things are extremely difficult.
Yeah.
It's all mental health, and it's a struggle that millions of people have every day.
When I spoke to you, I called you a few months ago, and I think it was around the time when you were wrapping up the
breaking up
Guys,
with the band,
and you were depressed. I could tell,
It
and
was
I
a
was
difficult
actually
time.
worried about you. And
Thank you.
And I think I sent Naomi a message to say I'm worried, and you said no, I need my space and do it, but there's ebbs and flows, ups and downs, isn't there?
Yes.
And that's the thing too, is that I suppose those manic moments where you get on tour and everything's great, and after a big tour, everything drops again. Is that things like that you worry about?
Well, that's a very common reason that there are a lot of musicians, theatre people, etc., people in the arts who, once you've had that high of a performance, there is nowhere else to go. You finish a gig and you're like high, and so you're in a natural high. So a lot of actors, musicians, then turn to substances to just dull themselves and to take themselves.
Is that why you see a lot of people trying to keep busy all the time? It's like when something finishes, let's do something else. Just to, we don't want to get to that gap.
Yeah. Well, look. Thank you for calling. I can remember when you did, and that's the other reason why I respect you, Michael, because you do care about people. And I was going through a very rough time, but there are a lot of people going through rough times. There are people struggling to pay their mortgages. There are people struggling to find a job to put enough food on the table. So in a way, I'm very very lucky. But that feeling of when you're down, it's just you sometimes just have to ride it out. You just got to ride it out.
I think you mentioned also too, you said that the death of Midnight Oil was another thing that brought you...
Look, that made me cry. I couldn't stop crying when
Because that was your time,
Rob
wasn't it?
Hurst died,
Yeah.
and to me, Rob Hurst was a lot more than a drummer.
Yeah.
A lot of people look at Rob as this incredible drummer, which he was, but to me, Rob was much more a very powerful songwriting force.
Yeah.
He was involved in writing all of those songs. Rob was known. He said to me once, he said, Jim will write the great riffs, but if you want a good pop chorus, come to me, Rob Hurst, because I can pump them out. And he did all of those. Oh, the power and the that's all Rob. He wrote so many songs. So when Rob died, it really hit me that it really was the end of an era
like an
for
internal...
For Australian music. I was never going to get to see Midnight Oil ever again. And they were a foundation in so many people's lives in Australia through the 80s and the 90s. Midnight Oil was such a powerful musical force. Well, globally, because they sang about things going on in the world. They sang about injustices. They sang about rights for native peoples. They sang about the environment and multinational companies screwing up the environment. They were the voice of the people.
Which are very much like a Spy versus Spy was very much a similar version of Midnight Oil when you look at those songs.
A lot of people call us, Midnight Oil's strange stepchild. But it was just the kind of the luck of the draw that their manager, Gary, came and saw us play and saw similarities in the Spies that he saw in the Oils, because I've always had a strong social conscience. I've always wanted write songs about things that I saw and social things, a lot of things that people didn't want to talk about. I wanted to write songs about that. So I think we fitted in with the Midnight Oil group for a time, and we did a lot of shows with the Oils, and I'm really grateful for that, because I learnt how to be a bass player from their bass player, Peter Gifford, or Giffo on drums. He was just a powerhouse with Rob Hurst on drums. I used to watch him every night, and I would look at them and go, this is how it's done. This is the way I must do it. I need to rock like these guys. They taught me. I stole everything I know from Pete Gifford on bass. No, he was a great teacher. We learnt heaps from them.
This is a hard question. The way I'm going to ask it, because I don't know whether you've actually maybe thought about this. You constantly talk about the 80s, the 70s, 80s, getting there. That was a real time for all bands. It was just a great time to be alive. In fact, you'd probably transport yourself back there if you had the chance.
Yeah.
But as we just mentioned about alcoholism, addiction, that time got you into that, which put you there. Is it sort of like a two-edged sword? It's like it was a great time, but it also had some things which put you in a shitty spot too down the track. It's sort of a weird sort of thing. It was great, but
absolutely,
it caused a lot of internal hemorrhage,
Yeah, but I just want to say right here and now that it was a great time, and lots of other bands did not have the same problems that Spy versus Spy did. There were heaps of bands who didn't drink and take drugs and things. It was just we happened to be a bunch of three guys who all had addiction problems. There are lots of other bands, heaps of them, who did not have those kind of problems. But I think the most wonderful time about the early 80s and the 90s, there's so many great bands, but music was everything. It was what we all lived for. Friday night, you went to the pub. If you wanted a job, you'd go to the pub. You'd go to the pub because all of the tradies would be there, and you could find a job at the pub. The local pub was everything. There was no internet, there was no cell phones, there was nothing. Pubs were where we all met, and there were always bands on, and music, albums, radio. Music was everything. It was our lives. People would come home and go, oh, I've got this new Dire Straits album, or I've got this new Cold Chisel album, and we would go home to their house, and this was a really exciting thing to do, to go home to someone's house and sit down and put a record on. I'll never forget the first time a friend of mine came to school with skyhooks, living in the 70s, and put it on before school, and this music came on, and it was the first time that I became aware that this was an Australian band, and there were Australian bands making music, and it opened my eyes to the fact that we have an Australian music culture. And getting back to what I said, music back then was everything. We all lived for it. Friday, Saturday nights, weekends was what bands are we going to go see?
And forgive me, I have said this in a previous podcast, but I'll be quick. But my first job as a journalist was with the Newcastle Post, and the Newcastle Post, I was doing a bit of sport, bit of everything. But the one thing all the journalists tried to avoid like the plague was having to do the gig guide. Not the stories. It was, if you had the gig guide, you had to ring up the Beaches Hotel. Who you got Thursday night? Who you got Friday night? Saturday, Sunday? Mary Ellen, who you got Thursday? You had to go through. That's how you did it, and you were just like, it was the most tedious day of,
Right, because you had to get it right,
yeah,
or
because
you'd get phone calls.
That gig guide was like. That was your Bible. It was your Bible in Newcastle.
We all got the gig guide back in. We lived for 20 years in Sydney. Mike and I left Nelson Bay High School in 1976 and drove down to Sydney to get a band together. But we used to live for the gig guides, because if we weren't playing on Friday and Saturday night, we would go out and see bands on Friday and Saturday night. But the gig guide was everything, because that period, and a lot of people talk about it, it was the golden age for Australian music. It was the best of times to see Australian bands. You could go see Cold Chisel in a pub. You could go see the Angels at a leagues club. You could go see the Rads. You could go see, there was just so many great, and that's just to name a few, but music was everything, and they were the best of times.
You mentioned Michael Wiley. We'll get into him in a sec, but living in Nelson Bay, that area, both of you, did you ever sneak into a pub and listen to a band, both of you? Or what was the first time you actually went into a place and listened to a live band? Do you remember?
We left home in 1976 and we were both 17, and we drove down to Sydney, rolled the car on the way down at Pete's Ridge. So we had to call, because I said, Mike, I'm not calling my parents, you called your parents.
How did you roll the car?
Well, it was pissing down rain, and Michael reached over. For some reason, we were talking non-stop. I had a Morris 1100. We had all our guitars.
You would have had seatbelts back then,
well, they were they were.
Well, you had
went around you. Yeah. It was pissing down rain. There were cars coming the other way, and Michael, for some reason, went, "Look out!" and reached over and grabbed the steering wheel. I'm driving and jerked it because he thought I was veering into the lane of cars coming, because it was only a 2-lane road
right. It was a long
from
trip.
Sydney to Newcastle and vice versa. Anyway, before I knew it, I overcorrected in the rain, and the next thing we were upside down on our side of the road.
Jesus Christ.
Luckily,
That could have been the end of Spy versus Spy
yeah,
before
before
it
we even started. So, but we got down to Sydney, and that same day we got a single bedroom flat on Carrabba Road, Neutral Bay, for $40 a week.
Wow.
So
Wonder what it is now.
yeah, yeah, and actually that was when we first saw the drugs in Sydney, because the people downstairs were all heroin addicts, and they were always falling asleep on the front step. And I used to think, what's wrong with them? But yeah, Sydney was awash with drugs. But I forget the question now. We've just gone back to this.
Just in regards to your first gig, first gig that you watched. In regards,
well, we started to see bands at the Mossman Hotel. I'll never forget this. On Thursday nights there was this band called the Citizen Band, and we'd sneak in. We were 17, but back then pubs kind of turned a blind eye. No, there was no ID checks, because they just wanted people to buy beer. But there was this band called the Citizen Band from New Zealand, and it was one of the Judds from Split Ends in the band, and it was Brent Eccles on drums, who wound up joining the Angels and playing in with Bob Spencer, and did the Howling album and the Beyond Salvation tour. So it was a small time, but we would go and see bands at the Mossman Hotel, and then we started going into the city, and we would go to French's Wine Bar, and Midnight Oil played at French's Wine Bar on this tiny stage downstairs. Like, there was bands everywhere. Wow. Every pub had bands on. That's why I say that era was the best of times for Australian music, because music was everything, and we lived for it. Everyone lived for it.
Michael Wiley, he died in 2018 of cancer. You still miss him?
Yeah, well, yeah, we met at school, and we were just as close as could be. We formed this lasting bond and friendship, and we went through thick and thin. We did this journey, and we formed a band. We didn't have a band name. I think this is Brazil.
I think that's Brazil.
This guy is introducing us in Brazil, and we just we realised we couldn't play covers, so we just started to write our own songs. Yeah. I wrote nearly all the first stuff. When I say I wrote it, Mike and Cliff contributed their vital parts, right? Because playing the guitar and the drums is just as important as the guy who wrote the words to a song. But we forged ahead. We just wrote songs about things that we saw around us, and we did our first gig at the Sussex Hotel because a friend called and said they couldn't play. Could we play? And we went, yeah, sure. But we didn't have a name. So he said, what are we going to call the band? Cliff immediately said, well, let's call it Spy vs. Spy, because it's 3 words and we're a 3-piece band. We went, that'll do. Yeah. And we went and played this gig at the Sussex Hotel, and then the next week the phone started to ring, and people started to say, would you come and play here? Would you come and play there? And so it was just that time when music was everything, and the phone rang. And for some reason, people used to say, well, we don't know what it is you've got, but you've got something. So can you just come and play? And to start with, we didn't have lyrics. We just were a kind of instrumental band, but then we realised had to write some words. None of us could sing very well, but I could sing better than anyone. So I got the job, and so it just went from there.
You mentioned started in pubs. Can you believe that you were in pubs and then all of a sudden you become massive in Brazil?
That was,
I mean, that's
that was the funniest scene, yeah.
So the story is that there was some Spy versus Spy bootleg copies in Bali, picked up by a Brazilian DJ who went back to Brazil and started playing them, and all of a sudden in Rio,
in
and all
prime
of a sudden,
time radio, and they liked a song that Michael wrote called "Clarity of Mind," and this guy kept. This was back in the day when people used to write letters because there was no internet. Hey, look, there's Martin Price, the drummer from the Models. He's a classic, beautiful man. He played in the Models for years. They're another great Australian band.
Yeah.
The Models are wonderful. But this guy from Brazil, this DJ, used to write to me and say, please come to Brazil. We love you here. And he wrote to me about four or five times, and I just kind of kept blowing him off. And then I finally wrote back and posted a letter to him saying, yeah, we'll come and play, but you've got to pay us $1,500 US a night, and you've got to pay for our hotels, you've got to pay for our flights, you've got to pay for transport to the gigs. And he wrote back and said, fine, I will send you plane tickets. And sure as eggs, these plane tickets arrived with this booklet with a bunch of dates, and it was 3 weeks worth of dates. And we went to the airport and we got on a plane. We thought, well, this is going to be an adventure. And because we were going to Brazil, I wanted to do the right thing and learn to speak a bit of Portuguese because that's what they speak.
Yeah.
So I learnt a few words to say at the gigs. And when we got there, we went. I remember the first gig, we got to this place and it was like a kind of stadium, and there were hundreds of people lining up outside, and we pulled into the backstage area, and it was like you go to a footy game and you just hear the kind of roar, this murmur of thousands of people murmuring and getting excited. And we had security guards, and we got off the bus and they took us to this backstage area, and I went, I'm going to go on stage and I'm going to go have a look. And there was a big curtain pulled across the front of the stage, and I thought, I'm just going to go and have a look and see how many people are here. And I went and pulled back the curtain, and oh my God, people recognised me, and there was like probably at least 15,000 people there, and they screamed, and I went, holy shit, and I shut this curtain and I ran back upstairs and went, guys, we're at a stadium and the place is packed, and that was the beginning of our tour. And at the same time, then the rest of the guys looked at me and said, you did this tour, you booked the tour, and you sold the tour for $1,500 a night. There's got to be 15,000 people there paying $20 a head, and you sold us for that. And I said, well, I didn't know we were huge over there. So somebody made a lot of money, but it wasn't us.
Well, after this upcoming tour, maybe a trip to Brazil for old time's sake.
Wouldn't that be fun? I would love to go back. We went back last year with the Hoodoo Gurus and Gangajang, and I took the R Spies with me. And even though the Brazilians, like Australians, want to hear the original versions of Spy versus Spy, they were great. Yeah. They came to the shows and they sang along, and they loved us a lot. But they would have loved us a lot more if we just would have done the original Spy versus Spy versions, which is what...
Well, it's coming.
It's coming. It's coming. It's what we're doing now.
Well, we've got to do another live ad. We've got some great sponsors on board with Incredible Lives with Cainey, and none more so than Good Folk Brewing. This brewery is as Newcastle as it gets. It has a vast range of craft beers. There's the company's core range like Danny's Wedge, Normal Lager, which is this, IPA, as well as a beautiful Black, which is an easy drinking dark lager highlighting roasted coffee, dark chocolate and sweet plum flavours.
Have you tried it? That sounds really good.
I'm going to get that next week. We'll do that on the podcast and give that a promo. Throw in a Slake West Coast Pilsener and a hazy pale guava train and a 6-pack from the Heavens. That's what you'd have. And you can also mix and match with boxes. You can actually get a 20 box pack of different assortments of beers. I know you're not into it because you're
but that sounds fantastic. Where are they?
They're at Beaumont Street, 80 Beaumont Street, Hamilton. And if you want to hop online, pardon the pun, hops. Yep. www.goodfolkbrewing.com.au for a good brew. Thank you to Good Folk Brewery. Now, you mentioned the tour that you're currently getting ready for. It's about...
Michael, did I mention that I've got to go to the toilet and urinate?
Go.
At Elk Architecture, we don't just design buildings, we shape the spaces where life happens. From concept to construction, our award-winning architects bring our vision to life with precision, passion and purpose. Whether it's your dream home or your next big commercial project, trust Elk Architecture to build what matters most. Elk Architecture, designed for life, built for the future.
In the world of construction, precision isn't optional, it's essential. For over 35 years, Newcastle Sheet Metal has delivered high-quality ductwork, fabrication and installation on time, every time. From large-scale commercial projects to precision custom work, we don't just meet deadlines, we set the standard. Newcastle Sheet Metal, built on experience, driven by quality.
You mentioned the tour you're currently getting ready for. It's about the anniversary of 2 albums in 1 year in 1986. Is that correct? How do you do that? I mean...
Well, like I said...
Wouldn't you want to span it out a little bit?
They were the best of times for Australian music.
Is it like striking while the iron's hot, is it?
Well, yeah. We released Harry's Reasons, which we did at Albert Studios, which is where AC/DC had recorded Rose Tattoo.
Yeah.
All the greats recorded there, and it did well. And so if you have an album that does well, the record company instantly wants you to release another one. So we had enough songs to go in and record.
Yeah.
Plus we were touring, playing constantly. And for us, we wrote a lot on the road. We would write songs at sound checks and then go back to our hotel rooms and work on songs. So we had enough material, and we went in and recorded AO Mod TV Verse. And so Harry's came out in February, and I think AO Mod came out in November or December 1986. So yeah, it's kind of rare though for a band to release 2 albums in 1 year, but we did.
And also touring at the same time. That's a pretty tough thing to do. Because usually bands would sort of block out a time just to nut that out.
Yeah, we blocked out some time, like about 3 weeks, and then you're back on the road.
Yeah.
Because that's the way that most bands were back then. You just played and played and played gigs, and you went up the coast, down the coast, over to Perth,
Yeah.
back, driving. I can derive for hours, and still to this day, and it just feels normal to me.
Yeah, from gigs to rigs,
Gigs to rigs.
oil rig, you change careers.
Well, that photo of that oil rig, that was one of our rigs that we went to. I became a chef, and for some reason I wanted to always go work on an oil rig, and so I applied for a job in Australia, for a job in the United States, down in Louisiana, out of New Orleans, and I got an interview. So I just hopped on a plane, flew over there, and because I've got this this heritage American passport, because my parents were Americans, I could get into the States and work there. So I turned up, did the interview, and 3 days later I was working as a chef on a rig in the Gulf of Mexico.
Can I ask what you mentioned? You always wanted to work on an oil rig. I don't know anyone that has said that. What made what
I
did
can
you want to do
tie
that?
it back into the booze thing. It was one of the things where I thought, well, if I work 3 weeks on a rig, I won't be able to drink.
Fair enough.
And so I didn't drink for 3 weeks, but I also liked the fact that it was an adventure and the money was really, really good. And while I was there, you can see that rig is listing to the left, because that was about 1 day after Hurricane Katrina hit, and I was on a 700-foot drill ship in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico when Katrina hit. So we were out there in the eye of it. I've never seen such huge seas, and lots of smaller boats that worked for our company, which were all dynamically positioned via satellite, came and dynamically positioned around us, so that if one of us sank, we could rescue the other ones. Now, this rig started to sink, and so we, the day when things calmed down, which was, I think, about the 6th day, once the hurricane passed over, we hightailed it to this rig, which is a semi-submersible rig, and we dynamically positioned alongside so that we could helicopter onto their rig and rescue those guys and get them to our ship and to the mainland. And me being the head chef, I had to feed everyone, which is good fun.
How many people would be on an oil rig?
Well, we ran it 150, so you've got to feed 150 guys 4 times a day.
Wow, 4 times. Wow.
Well, yeah, because you work 12-hour shifts.
Yeah.
So you've got breakfast and then three main meals.
Would you have a few days off at certain points?
No, you work 3 weeks, 12-hour day shifts, so that by the end of it, when you're in your 3rd week, there's a rule among the ship, the crew, that we start saying, treat them kindly, they're on their 3rd week, because you just get really tired, worn out, and you lose the vibe a bit. So we're just kind of kind to each other for that last week.
At what point did you, just reel it back a little bit, I mean, what point did you say in your life, I want to become a chef? Is that something that's always...
It was towards the end of the Spies. Like the Spies, we had great success, but we kept going for too long. When Cliff left, like any band, as soon as a band member leaves, the chemistry changes. The chemistry changed when Cliff left, and we kept going longer than we should. We had said what we intended to say, but we just kept going. And
Could you feel it at the time?
I could feel it. I could feel it that we had our day. There were so many great bands coming through. It was time for us to step aside and let the other bands coming through. Plus, I was thinking, how am I going to live for the rest of my life? And I always liked to cook, so I thought, well, I'm going to become a chef. And I tried to do it the easy way, just go work in a roadhouse, but the jobs were all dead end, and I realised that I was going to have to do a 4-year apprenticeship, or I was never going to be a chef. So I started that at age 39, and I left the band. Michael was really cranky with me. He just wanted to keep going, and so Mike kept the band going, and eventually got Paul Green in the band, which most people will tell you was the best version of Spy versus Spy without me, because Paul sang like me. He's got passion, all that stuff. So the irony is that now Paul and I have reformed V Spy, and we're going out again. But Mike kept going, but I knew that, and I had to put food on the table. And I always loved to cook. I loved to cook. So I just immersed myself in that. When I became a qualified chef, I went to the States and realised quickly that what the Americans called chefs and what we called chefs were completely different, because I have no formal training or 4-year apprenticeships. They do 6 months at a culinary school and they call themselves chefs. Now look at that. That's Mel. She's tremendous. She's one of my senior chefs. She actually tells me what to do.
Were you demoted after that?
Look, we had a little moment. We both got a little tingle out of that, but she had gotten flour all over herself, and I very kindly offered to brush the flour off of her.
Wow.
Unfortunately, someone took a photograph when I was brushing the flour off of her top.
And that next one wasn't the bit where you were hitting it with a wet lettuce.
Well, the lettuce, look, salads are integral of any part of a balanced diet, and you can see there that I'm wearing a chef's uniform with my signature on it, Blox, which was especially made for me by Ricardo Saliba, who was a Brazilian fan of ours, who gave it to me when we did the Hoodoo Gurus tour with Gangajang in 2024. I went there, and he was involved in the first gig that we ever did in Brazil, and he came along, and he's grey now like me, and he brought me this great gift, which is that chef tunic there. So there's a lot of history there. Do
you find a little bit of irony that you become a chef and you're just telling us about how you knew that your time was up, I had enough, wanted to do something different. Now you're a chef. Now you want to get back into it.
Yeah.
Now, but is it a good mixture now? Because like I do this on the side, but I go back. I'm a carpet layer again.
Yeah.
And I actually like the yin and the yang. You know.
Me too. I like it.
And is that the same thing where you can sort of be a chef, you can make money, but you can still. It's like you're doing a passion project now rather than a. You know, we have to survive out of this.
Yes. Yeah. That was the reason that I left the band, because we had run our course and we had nothing else to say. We weren't saying anything. We were just going through the motions. But I do believe that that in probably most people's lives, we've got to work. You've got to work at something to pay the bills, but it's good to have a hobby. It really is.
I mean, working in a team like that, which is at that's at the stadium.
That's at the stadium.
Is it being a chef in, I suppose, in any environment? Is it a little bit like being a band on the night? It's sort of, you've got to prep, then it ramps up, and then you have to perform. It's like you have to hit
That's exactly what it's like. That's where I met Chris Lowe, the incredible drummer from the Arse Spies. We met at work, and he played the drums, and I played the bass. But when you're a chef, you get to work, you work frantically to get all the food prepared, and then it's meal time. You cook the food, you serve the food, and then it's finished, and you pack down and clean up and go home. It's exactly the same as being in a band.
Does anyone do it?
You go to the gig and you set up the gig, you get the gear ready, you do the show, it's a great show, and then you clean up, you pack up, and you go home. Being a chef is exactly like being in a band.
Have you ever had people, you're serving someone, or someone sees you and there's like a double take? Isn't that a guy from Spy versus Spy? Like, has there ever been people go, what is it?
Yes, it's wonderful. I can remember the time when I was the head chef at the Hunter Valley Private Hospital. I realised that the wonderful guitarist and local boy who helped organise the benefit for Greg Bryce, Grant Wormsley, was one of our patients up in one of the rooms. And so I took his lunch up to him and surprised him when he came out of anaesthesia and said, "Hello, Grant. It's me, Craig, from the Spice." He said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, I cooked your lunch, mate." But yeah, that kind of thing happens.
And you're probably going, "You're supposed to make me feel good about it." What have you done to it?
Yeah. Well, hospital food can be good. I thought that our food was pretty good at the hospital.
Some random pics.
Look at Mel. She's gorgeous. That was 1983 at St Leonard's Park.
Did you Rexona before that? Or what?
Now look, there's a story behind that. I'm playing an Ibanez Roadster, and so's Michael. But that was St Leonard's Park in 1983. There was a band before us called the North to Alaskans, featuring Spencer Jones from Beasts of Bourbon on guitar. And then following us was a band called Do Re Mi, with Deborah Conway and Helen Carter and Steve on guitar, and who was on, wonderful drummer.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't remember his name. But we got paid. I'm going to set this straight. We got paid. That was a 2JJJ concert, and we got paid by check by the ABC, and the check was made out to Spy versus Spy. When we went to and it was for $600. That was the most money we'd ever seen. $600 back in 1983 was a lot of money. So we went to the local glebe bank, because we were squatters, and said, "We want to cash this check." And they said, "Which one of you is Spy versus Spy?" So we said, "We all are." And they said, "You've got this is made out to Spy versus Spy, which is a business. You've got to form a business." So he went, "Shit." And so we went into town. I think it was Kent Street, and I think it cost us $30 to register a business name. But when we went to register the name, there was a band called Neon Spies or something Spies, and they said, "You cannot register Spy versus Spy." So Cliff said, "How about if we register as V-Spy? And they looked through the files, said, "Yes, you can register as that." So I think we paid $32. We all got all the money that we had, and then we went back to the bank with this check and said, "Look, there we are. the business name, and they said, well, this is V-Spy. And we said, yeah, yes, but that's the same as Spy versus Spy. And we kind of begged them, and they cashed it. They cashed the check, and that was the birth of Spy versus Spy. It had nothing to do with Mad magazine. They have never wanted to sue us or anything like that. It was all to do with Triple J and this concert right there. That was how we became V-Spy.
What a great story for that pick. Just staying on that, if I had other picks of you on stage in different colours or stage, could you 9 times out of 10 go, I know that gig?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Considering how many gigs you've done, that's a pretty...
Pretty much. We wrote one of our... Well, it went the highest in the charts. We wrote Don't Tear It Down. We wrote most of that song during a sound check at Newcastle Workers Club, because when you set up the gear, you run through songs. But when you get tired of running through songs, one of us will start a jam. And I started that bass line. And then Cliff started to play. And then Mike came in with the da-da-da-dee-dee-dee-da-da-da-dee-dee. And we would always have the sound guy out the front. He had a little cassette player in the front of house desk, and we would say, Pat, roll tape, record this. And we just jammed through Don't Tear It Down. And then we went back to the hotel and wrote the words. But we wrote Don't Tear It Down at a sound check at Newcastle Workers Club.
Wow. Next.
Oh, there's Mike's mum, Gabby. Oh, Gabby. She was lovely. She supported us when we moved down to Sydney and rolled the car. Her husband came to pick us up at Pete's Ridge, and we went and got a flat. Mike's mum raised Michael and Christian as a single mum in London back in the 60s, when being a single mum had a lot of stigma to it. But then she met John Wiley, who became Michael's stepfather, and they moved to Australia, moved to Nelson Bay, and that's where I met Michael. But she made the best curry. Because in London where she lived, tons of Indians and Pakistanis, and she learnt the correct way to make curries. And one time I was by her place, and she was making curry, and I stuck my finger in to taste it, and before I knew it, this wooden spoon had cracked me across the wrist so hard I shrieked like a girl and went, ah! And she said, don't you ever stick your fucking finger in my curry ever again. And honestly, from that point I learnt, don't go sticking your finger into other people's food.
Can we see any curries at McDonald Jones Stadium in a hurry?
No, do we? Well, actually, Mel, who I was wiping the flour off her apron before, she made a vegan curry today, which is just delicious. Started with a cauliflower bits, which she boiled down, and then put red lentils in, and then she got broccoli and more cauliflower, carrots, chili, garlic and onions, and she combined that and made this totally vegan, no animal products at all. So there's many ways to make curry now, because now you've got vegans, you've got lactose-free people, gluten-free people, meat-free people, mushroom-free people, all these people who can't eat, and chefs, it's very annoying when you're a chef.
Kelly sent me down to the shops at Charlestown Square to get some bread, and it was this GI low, I can't even remember
low GI.
What it was. She had to write it for me. I was like, and I'm going, and there was all these different breads. I'm like, what just happened to normal fucking bread? It's like milk. What happened to normal milk?
High fibre, low GI white sliced toast,
Christ.
please. Yep.
Next.
Next. That's it.
Now,
Hey, there you are. I
That's-
like that look.
that's
That
on
wa-
that was on your phone. When I call, that comes up.
Yeah. That comes up.
You sent
There
it
is.
to me.
Yeah, I like it. You were going out that night to see AC/DC.
That's right.
I think you went and saw them down in Sydney. Did was their support band Wet Leg? Do you remember?
I think they were.
Were they loud?
They were all loud.
They were all loud. Well,
Yeah.
I suppose you go to an AC/DC concert,
Yeah.
it's going to be loud. But I like Wet Leg. They come from the Isle of Wight, and they were kind of a success story. Their first album came out and it went to #1 in the UK. But Wet Leg stands for when people come to the Isle of Wight, when they step off the ferry, they step into the water, so they've got a wet leg. I like them; they're good. Check them out. But that was you. That's a photo of you going to see AC/DC.
I looked at a very Brian Johnson look about that.
Look, I think you look sensational. How were AC/DC on
They
that
were,
night?
they were really good. Again, you look at their age.
Yeah.
It was like, look, Angus. It's just ridiculous. And look, I took Kelly, and Kelly's not into that, right? But by the end of the night, she appreciated what she was watching. I said, I don't care whether you don't like the music or whatever, just watch these guys. So Brian, especially Angus, for their age, it's almost like they just know they're just the masters of their art. And it doesn't matter whether you're a musician or whatever, when you're watching someone at the top of their game, it's like you appreciate that. And I think she walked away going, yeah, like that was something, you know. And she's been to a lot of, you know, that just wasn't her genre.
Yeah.
But I think she got something out of it, that she saw, you know, a great guitarist.
Oh, look.
Still doing it.
They are part of Australian rock history, and Angus Young has always been a great player, brilliant showman. Malcolm Young is a massively talented rhythm guitarist who wrote all those riffs and all those songs. But then you've got Phil Rudd, drummer extraordinaire, and you've got Mark Evans, who played the bass on all those first seminal, incredible albums which took them around the world. But then they got, what's his name, Steve? Anyway, they went from there, and Bond died and Brian Johnson joined. But they're a classic Australian rock, you know, royalty.
Yeah. And again, it was probably, this is going to be the last time we're going to probably see him here. So let's just see it for the last time. You know?
That's right. See him for the last time. And we're never, ever going to see Midnight Oil ever again. And that, for me, is really sad, because they were hugely influential to me. They were part of growing up. The first time I saw them was at the Royal Antler Hotel, and I remember being squeezed in by the fold-back desk, and the place was so full that the band, Pete, right, who was a great front man, finally said, open the doors and let everybody in, because there was as many people outside as there were inside.
Wow.
The walls were running with sweat. It was so hot you could barely breathe. The soundback guy turned around to all of us who were pressing up against him, spread his arms and went, would all of you just fuck off? Because we were crushing him against the foldback desk. And for those who don't know, the foldback desk is the guy who mixes the sound through the microphones for the band on stage. But I stood side of stage that night in 1982 and saw something that changed my life. Midnight Oil were a force back then. They were the most powerful rock band I'd ever seen, and when I saw them, I knew what I had to do then. I saw this is the level that I need to strive for, and just but that was Australian rock back in the 80s and the 90s. They were the best of times for Australian bands, the best of times for Australian music.
They certainly were. I think we got one more left. What?
Oh, now that's a fantastic 10-1. I will never forget when the Oils came back from recording that album. Triple J they played the album back to back on the air, and I think all of Sydney tuned in. That's me in the nude, holding up the poster with my gold record for AM Mod TV verse behind me. You can see one of the bases that I've crafted underneath. But that 10-1, that's a rare Midnight Oil poster, and I used to collect posters. I used to steal a lot of them. I think I stole that actually from the Midnight Oil office, but please don't let anyone know that I did, okay?
Well, it was perfect talking about Midnight Oil straight into that. But you have a thing for walking around your apartment naked in the summer, don't you?
I think nudity's great. You just can feel the wind in your hairs, and gardening nude is something special. You get out there.
Mate, you be careful with the mattock.
Careful with the mattock, and steer clear of cactus. But apart from that, it just brings out the animal in you. It's great.
You did a few promos on your phone for the live show, and one of them was you walking around nude in your apartment promoting the live show.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that, Michael. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that if the world walked around nude, like, wouldn't it be great if instead of Donald Trump wearing those ridiculous blue shirts and red ties, just if he'd stand up and give one of his speeches in the nude, I think we'd see each other and we'd see him for what he really is.
Wow. I never thought we'd talk about Donald Trump naked today.
Well, in the nude, we'd all get a real glimpse at what he's all about.
Absolutely. Just like, whenever you're going to invite me to lunch at your place, can we make it winter? Look, Bloxy, you never won an ARIA, did you? Unfortunately.
No.
Well, I know.
No, but let me tell you, we were nominated for one. We were. Now, a lot of people don't know that when you go to the ARIA Awards, the ones that are televised, right, they're all the winners of the most successful things or the most popular, blah, 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 blah. But before each awards, they have the awards for the worst album of the year, or the worst album title of the year, the worst album cover. So it's kind of like the raspberries. Yeah. Most people are not aware of that. But we were nominated for the worst album cover of the year for Xenophobia. Why?
Why was that?
Because it's a fucking shit cover. Gary Morris came up with it.
Didn't you have a say in it? Like, there's a few of years going.
I came up with the name. I said, let's call the album Xenophobia, because at the time there was so much racism in Sydney. People were going around going, stop the Asian invasion, spraying it on the walls, and it just felt relevant to me. And xenophobia simply means the fear of things foreign, right? So I thought that that if we all just mingle and mix and get along like
There
the
it
world's...
is.
There we go. So I said, let's
It's
call
pretty
it...
shit, isn't it?
Let's call it Xenophobia. That is the shittiest album cover. So I wanted Xenophobia, but Gary, who did this record cover, said, no, let's call it Xenophobia. Why? Because then we're posing the question, why is there xenophobia? I said, Gary, let's just call it Xenophobia. That says enough. And he went, no, I am the manager. I manage Midnight Oil. I manage Spy vs. Spy. I will have the final call. I went, okay, you win. Because he's a big, tough guy, Gary. He was a black belt in karate and all that stuff. So, but
Well, if that didn't win the worst gong, what shit show won?
look, it was something even worse. Can you believe that there'd be a worse record cover than that? Anyway, Gary came, he said, I've got the record cover, and he came around the squats, because we were still living in the squats. We lived in the squats until 85. We had no money. Like, you might have had a record in the charts, but that doesn't mean money. So he came round with this record cover, and we all went, are you kidding? That's a joke cover. That's a 14-year-old kid did that, and he was insulted. He said, no, this is it. This is what it's going to be. Because he's one of those guys where if you say, you can't do that, he'll go, well, I'm doing it then. And so,
Well, if you would have said it was great, he would have said, oh, no, it's fucked now.
Yeah, that's right. We should have. But anyway, yeah. So we were nominated for an ARIA for the worst record cover of the year.
I know every few weeks they have the olive tree markets across the road at Civic Park.
Oh,
and
they're
they have a
great.
guy selling albums.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and find that. If I can find that, I want you to sign that.
I will sign it. The worst album cover ever, made by Gary Morris from Midnight Oil.
Well, what I was getting at, you haven't won a proper ARIA award, but I know a place that could actually make you one. They're called Purnell Trophies, proud sponsors of this podcast. They can do just about anything: trophies, medals, corporate plaques, shields, stubby holders, display cases. They could even bronze you.
And they've been around for a while,
They
haven't
have
they?
57 years to
Wow,
be,
yeah,
to be
they're- yeah,
exact.
they're great.
And on behalf of Purnell Trophies, they've got you a trophy.
You're joking.
Look, you can
I better put my glasses on.
Purnell Trophies.
Let's have a look at it.
Purnell Trophies can put you on a pedestal. They also do promotional signage, glassware, everything. They're incredible coffee
Well,
cups.
thank you so much.
Purnell Trophies.
Purnell Trophies, thank you so much for this wonderful thing, which reads, Craig Bloxy Bloxom for excellence in riffs, stories, and questionable life choices. And that's so true. Well, thank you, Purnell Trophies. Thank you very much. I will cherish this.
Purnell Trophies, 24 Broadmeadow Road, Broadmeadow, or call them on 49612666. Look, you've got a gig coming up pretty soon. It's
Yes, I love this.
it's we should have put you on a podium. This is coming up.
Yeah, it's coming up.
in
Dungog rocks.
Dungog. When was the last? How many times you ever played Dungog before?
No, I've never played in
Wow.
Dungog. I've been through there many times. It's a great little town. It's horse territory. Like
I think Craig McLaughlin only played there a few weeks ago. Actually,
Did he?
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's country. They love country music, but they're going to get a dose of Australian rock on the 5th of September. That's Empire Touring. They're great. They do, heaps of these heritage shows with lots of bands back from the great old days, and that's going to be a lot of fun. And it's going to be the first time that you're going to get to see the new hard rock and spice.
I was just about to say before, was there going to be a few gigs leading into the tour? That obviously the one.
There's one right there. There could be a couple more warm-ups, but we're not saying anything yet because we're still spies.
You do have a lot of tartan sort of pants. So what we're in the country. What are you going to be wearing out there?
Look,
Have you thought about your wardrobe?
Yeah, I have, and that's a good point because we're a pants band, okay? Well, that's our thing. We're into pants. The Gurus, Hoodoo Gurus, take a look at them. They're a shirts band, okay? They've all got incredibly lovely shirts, but we're a pants band. I don't know why. We just are. Pants are our thing. bright colours, patterns. Love it. We love it. Bring your pants or come in the nude. It's your choice.
Good luck with the upcoming tour, Bloxy. Dates and places will be released on July 9 or around that time. Get out and catch the V Spies. I know it'll be a success. Don't be a stranger. Come back to the podcast after this tour. I'd love to hear all about it, and I'm sure there's going to be some stories to be told. Craig Bloxy Bloxom, thank you for coming.
Michael Cainey, thank you very, very much for having me and supporting Australian people, telling their stories and sharing their lives with you. Thank you for your good work, Michael.
Thanks, Bloxy.
See ya.